Well, we're back again with yet another rapid-fire review, and this time we're going to be covering the 4-star Hydro Sword, Xingqiu. Xingqiu isn't the most intuitive character. Outside of Mona and the soon-to-be-released child, Hydro lacks a decent frontline DPS. People might be tempted to build Xingqiu for this role, but he's not really a good fit. Much like Fischl, Xingqiu is best used as a backline support, setting up swords or using his burst to do over 5,000% damage. You heard me, over 5,000% damage. Let's get straight to it. Xingqiu's normal and charged attack is Guhua style. There's nothing too out of the ordinary here, 5-strike combo and a 2-strike charged attack. Xingqiu's elemental skill is Guhua Sword, Fatal Rain Screen. Xingqiu hits twice for 168% and then 191% at base, applying wet to himself for a split second and gaining the maximum number of rain swords. At base level this is 3 swords, increasing to 4 after obtaining Constellation 1. When a character takes damage with a rain sword orbiting them, it'll shatter, reducing the amount of damage taken by 20% at base. Rain swords also increase the character's resistance to interruption, meaning that smaller hits won't knock you out of actions. Furthermore, 20% of Xingqiu's Hydro damage bonus is converted into additional damage reduction from the rain swords, capping at a bonus of an additional 24%. The rain swords have a duration of 15 seconds and also apply Hydro to enemies when they come into contact with the swords while they orbit your character. After Ascension 1, when a rain sword shatters or expires, the active character is healed for 6% of Xingqiu's max hit points. So this skill hits pretty hard for a total of 359% damage at base, and the 2 hits means that it'll typically remove whatever element is on the enemy being hit through a reaction before applying Hydro again with a second hit, setting up for another reaction. Xingqiu's elemental burst is Guhua Sword, Rain Cutter. Xingqiu activates Rainbow Blade Work for 15 seconds, during which rain swords will stay at the maximum number and normal attacks will trigger sword rain attacks. At base, these swords hit for 54.3% each and alternate between 2 and 3 swords per follow-up attack. Getting Constellation 2 extends the duration of this burst from 15 to 18 seconds, adding a Hydro res reduction effect. And getting Constellation 6 adds a 3rd follow-up attack with 5 swords, as well as causing these sword hits to regenerate energy, causing one cast of Xingqiu's burst to add a ridiculous amount of Hydro damage over its duration. With an internal cooldown of about a second between these follow-up attacks and an estimated maximum of 17 attacks for a total of 55 swords, even at talent level 1 this will add another 2,986.5% Hydro damage over its duration, getting even higher with Hydro damage bonuses and additional talent levels. At talent level 6 and Constellation 3 adding another 3 levels for a total of 9, the swords reach a 92.3% multiplier each, meaning one burst can provide over 5,000% damage. Overall this is pretty theoretical and idealistic, but in practice you should be able to achieve 60 to 80% of the maximum number of swords based on the situation and team composition you work Xingqiu into. This will also be constantly applying Hydro over its duration, so pairing this with a character of another element will enable constant reactions. One small note though, since you're held at the maximum number of swords over the duration of the burst, you'll retain the damage reduction and interrupt resistance over the course of the burst, but since the swords won't expire or shatter, there will be no healing. Xingqiu's second passive talent is Blades Amidst Raindrops, giving Xingqiu a 20% Hydro damage bonus, which also improves the damage reduction of his rain swords. Xingqiu's domestic talent is Flash of Genius. Xingqiu has a 25% chance to refund a portion of materials used when crafting character talent materials. As for the constellations we haven't mentioned yet, Constellation 4 is Evil Soother. During Guhua Sword Rain Cutter, Guhua Sword Fatal Rain Screen will deal 50% extra damage. Lastly, Constellation 5 is Embrace of Rain, a simple 3-level boost to Guhua Sword Fatal Rain Screen to a maximum of 15. So with that covered, it's fairly apparent that Xingqiu's main role in a team is to act as a support and provide small amounts of healing and damage reduction. While his skill deals a respectable amount of damage, it's got a long cooldown and is mostly there for the rain swords and subsequent damage reduction. But boy do you get a lot of value from the swords. Damage reduction reduces the total amount of healing needed, and while the additional top-up healing that applies when a sword breaks isn't very large, it also means that there isn't a lot of wasted healing either, unless swords end up expiring and you're at full health. Xingqiu's swords can also be set up before committing to your main DPS, whereas relying on Barbara for heals means you need to swap off to Barbara after taking a hit, before using Barbara's regen. Xingqiu doesn't suffer from using his skill off cooldown either, whereas keeping maximum uptime with Barbara's heal over time will often result in overhealing. In contrast, Xingqiu's damage reduction and healing triggering in reaction to taking damage is much more efficient. So how exactly do you set up Xingqiu? In terms of weaponry, Xingqiu prioritizes the sacrificial sword. Lacking that, the skyward blade comes after. If you have neither of those, then you should prioritize swords with energy recharge. The reason why the sacrificial sword is preferred over the skyward blade is because it allows you to double up on the hydro energy generated by Xingqiu's skill, since most of Xingqiu's damage comes from his burst. As such, builds should be focused on maximizing the burst's uptime. Next along, artifacts. The 4-piece Noblesse set is generally regarded to be the best in slot for Xingqiu so long as you have a sword with energy recharge to make up for no additional recharge from artifact set bonuses. Outside of this, you can also go for the Instructor set to allow Xingqiu to boost the elemental mastery of his team. For ease of use in a more casual setup, going with 2 Exile and 2 Scholar will also make it easier to reach the roughly 250% recharge required to maximize burst uptime. In general, you'll want to prioritize energy recharge on your Hourglass, hydro damage on your Cup, and crit damage or crit rate on your hat pieces, and also prioritize crit stats over elemental mastery for substats. While Xingqiu's Rain Cutter certainly triggers many reactions, the individual hits themselves are weak, and thus you'll benefit more from getting that crit rate up. Well then, with Xingqiu set up as a premier support DPS, who does he prefer to play with? As a backline carry, we only really need to consider his synergy with characters occupying a main DPS role. First up, Razor. Razor uses his normal attack a lot over the duration of his burst, making it ideal for triggering Xingqiu's Rain Cutter attacks. Razor's burst duration of 15 seconds also means it overlaps well with Xingqiu's, while Xingqiu's burst helps him with survivability. Next, Diluc. Xingqiu constantly provides the wet status. Paired with Diluc's ability to throw out constant pyro damage after his burst, it's a great source of vaporize reactions. Diluc's low cooldown elemental skill also enables him to generate decent amounts of energy to accelerate Xingqiu's burst charge. Lastly, Keqing. Keqing's a bit of a funny one as she has multiple build archetypes. Since Xingqiu's burst only adds attacks to normal attacks, Xingqiu is only a good support for physical-based Keqing builds, and a poor match for Keqing builds that focus mostly on spamming her elemental skill. So to cap things off, a quick summary. Xingqiu is a backline support that wants a sacrificial sword and the Noblesse artifact set to maximize the amount of damage he deals with his burst. Get hydro damage on the cup piece, recharge on your Hourglass, and attack percent or crit on your hat piece. You'll want about 200% recharge on Xingqiu to maximize ult uptime. If you can beat that with just a weapon and the substats on your artifacts, you can go with attack percent on your Hourglass and crit on your hat piece. As for the rest of your stats, prioritize crit stats and attack percent before elemental mastery. And that's about it. Thank you very much for watching until the end, take it easy, stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next video.